Okay, you needed a green industry salesperson, and you found somebody with industry experience. They interviewed well, everyone was excited, and now 6 months later, they either left or you're considering letting them go. The problem, it isn't always who you hired. Sometimes it's what happened after you hired them. So today we're talking about why so many new salespeople struggle to gain traction in the green industry, what great companies do differently. Hey, well, it's a great pleasure to introduce you all to Kayla Lujan from Grit, who I've actually gotten to know over the last, year or two. We met on social media and then actually got to spend some time in person at an industry conference recently, a couple of them. And I've always wanted to kind of come back to this conversation. I enjoyed your content. So, Kayla, why don't you give our audience a brief overview of your professional experience like in the green industry and what you're doing now?
Yeah, so I've been in the industry, going on 17 years. It doesn't feel that long, but I started in the field like most people. I actually started on a crew and really worked my way through operations. So I did account management, and then I fell into sales with some initial resistance. I was an individual contributor for about 7 years, and then I became a sales leader. So the last 5 years, I was in a top 25 landscape company, really helping to build their sales organization and also their people. And then recently, I just launched Grit, which is Green Industry Talent, where we focus on sales coaching, training, placement, and also fractional sales leadership.
Yeah, I think you and I have some similar parts of our journey. I actually spent 7 years in sales too, in the landscape industry, and was doing something else there before. And then I kind of took the path of marketing and wasn't in sales management, but I got a lot of experiences. And I think we're going to unpack some of those today too, like some of the things that we've seen. I think as we talk about, this whole topic of why salespeople fail in the green industry, specifically like new people, I think a lot of company owners assume that, it's about finding the right person. And once we find the right person, it's over. But I'm thinking you'd probably argue that's actually where the work actually starts. That's where it begins, right?
100%, definitely where the work begins. It is hard finding sales talent, no secret with that. But so much goes into the onboarding piece that so many companies miss. So if you think about majority of landscape companies, right? Everyone talks about focusing on the customer experience. We have to have this grand sales plan to make sure our customers love us. We're going to retain it. But there's not a focus on the internal onboarding process in terms of how are we actually setting the first impression when people come in and they have their first day, right? So as a new hire, I've seen so many people come in. They get a laptop and they get a 2-week schedule that says, hey, you're going to do ride-alongs. And that's kind of it.
Yeah, that whole onboarding training, I want to dig into that a little bit more later. Other than this misconception of let's focus on the customer experience and let's not really spend time on the new hire, the new salesperson experience. I mean, do you feel like there's a point that you usually recognize the company isn't really setting somebody up for success in the beginning? What are some of the warning signs and things that you see, especially in that first few months when a salesperson starts?
Yeah, I mean, you can usually identify this in the first 2 weeks if a sales rep isn't being set up for success. And that really starts with if that new hire is still guessing what good looks like, and that hasn't truly been defined for them. And the manager's only touch point, especially in sales, is the one-on-one that's a pipeline review. There's not going to be success long-term.
Yeah. And that's really common. I mean, I saw this. I mean, I got to train all kinds of salespeople, and we kind of said, it was a group effort. The sales manager hired the person and they said, okay, ride with Bob this week, ride with Chad the next week, ride with Susan the next week. They all have their own ways of kind of doing things, which is a little disturbing too. And they all have their own strengths, which is great. You get good experience that way. And then learn how to use the software, learn how to create estimates, and then good luck. Go ahead. Here's your truck. Here's your car. Go out. Here's your territory. Make some rain happen. And I think a lot of times we assume that talented people will just connect the dots. They'll just figure it out that way. And I mean, why do you think that approach is so common just in business in general, but specifically here in the green industry?
Yeah, we've all seen the red easy button, right? Like, I don't know, what is that, Staples? That's like the same thing. Like, people believe that if I just put this new hire with my team and they go do a ride along, it's going to be a good onboarding process. So most companies, they don't have a real structure, and that's where the onboarding fails with an already stretched leader who's managing 1,000 other things. And the ride along also feels like training because that new hire is with somebody, right? So it's like time spent. So you're leading yourself to believe like, oh, this new hire is learning so many things. They're learning about the industry. They're learning about, the company. And like, I did this all the time, is that I would do the ride along piece. I would send my sellers with new people, but I didn't have like a task attached with that ride along, meaning like, what was the objective that they were going to learn with John, or what were they going to learn with Monica, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a missing piece. So you're saying having objectives. What other pieces are missing in the first even few weeks or first month of a new salesperson's experience with the company?
I mean, again, going back to like the ride along piece, is that I think we also failed that the person who they're riding with isn't prepared, or do they really understand why this new hire is riding with them? So like, we see it a lot with, like, we'll send a new hire or new salesperson with an account manager. Well, that account manager has like their own world, their own fires to fight. So they may truly not understand, why is this salesperson riding with me? Like, what should I be teaching them? So it's important as a leader that you're actually having a conversation with the person they are spending time with, and be specific about what you want that account manager to talk to them about and train them on. And then it goes same for the person that is onboarding, is that, hey, these are the things you should be asking the account manager or the irrigation manager or the branch manager, so that they have those tasks and deliverables, so that they're understanding not only what the business does, but like, how is it actually done? Because that's essentially what they're going to be selling.
Yeah, I think we take for granted that just because people are really great at their jobs, that they're also good at teaching someone else how to do that. And it's not, it is a little bit of information overload when you become a salesperson at a landscape company, especially if you haven't been in the industry before. You're learning all this technical stuff. You're learning the company process and how they do it differently. But I think the thing that gets missed a lot is, and it might be very difficult for great salespeople who are unconsciously great at their job to explain to them, listen, this is why I said it this way. And this is why I asked for an agreement of this, or this is what I'm going to do from this point forward to avoid this potential pitfall. I think sometimes it's so unconscious in a great salesperson's mind that they're not great at imparting that and explaining to somebody, or they assume that the new sales rep knows why they're doing something or knows why they're saying it a certain way. So, other than like a sales process, setting expectations, are there any other things that in that first 90 days, it's really critical to teach salespeople? The obvious is the technical knowledge and how we package services. What are some of the other really important things that get missed?
I think things that get missed, or like that they're struggling with from a leadership perspective, that like we need to do, is defining like, what are the expectations, right? So like you mentioned, is that companies assume, especially with seasoned sellers, that people know what they should be doing. So having that framework, or that, I call it the roadmap, like, how do I actually do my job? And if you don't have that roadmap, like, you're going to have a seller who's going to stall out almost immediately, because they're going to be overwhelmed. And that goes into really like information overload. So one thing we do as sales leaders, even me early in my career, is that the first like week that I was doing onboarding, I didn't realize I was dumping so many SOPs, training programs. This is how we do our estimating. Like, meanwhile, they're not even estimating anything yet. And at that point, you just see like the eyes roll back in sellers' heads, right? Because it's just too much. So really understanding as a leader Like, yes, it's important to learn all the processes and systems in our sales process, but you have to break it into like little bite-sized chunks and then allow them to learn that in the field. Because when you overwhelm them, again, they're just going to stall out. So many of us, we get like paralysis when we have so many things going on. So making sure that you're thinking about how is the seller really getting this information and how can they best apply it as they go through really the first, 30, 60, 90 days.
So what does it look like for coaching? As a manager, you're kind of that person that's looking above the process and the information and the people on your team that are helping to train. But you have to kind of step into these situations in this relationship of a new team member more often, and you have to coach. And you had said it before, like that was my experience too. We have a sales meeting. Guess what we're doing? We're talking about where the numbers are missing targets. There's people talking about opportunities and specific things they have going on in the pipeline. But there's very little focus, either on a group setting or on an individual setting, of coaching people and teaching them how to develop skills of how to do their job well. Mm-hmm. Do you feel like that's probably like one of the biggest, impacts, negative impacts in a new salesperson or any salesperson's experience is what is that rhythm supposed to look like?
Great question. So many sales leaders manage to the numbers. And it has been mind-blowing over the last 5 weeks, talking to so many different landscape companies, owners, sales leaders, and it's all the same reoccurring theme, is that they're all looking at their CRM dashboard or their sales results, and they're wondering why their sellers aren't producing. And the number one problem I'm finding is because they're managing their people to a number and not actually to what is going to drive the right behaviors. I think that's the number one mistake, is that, the numbers tell you what has already happened, right? Like that is what the result is. The coaching that you're going to give your sellers is going to change what happens next. And the coaching is where the growth actually happens. So, if you're not taking the information that your sellers are giving you, whether it's deals that they're working on or the moments that they need help with, like you're not coaching. You're just, again, micromanaging. And again, a mistake I made is that we all have different types of sellers on our team, right? C players, B players, A players. And if you're not coaching, the B is never going to get to an A. And if you're not coaching an A, they're going to fall to a B. So the effective coaching, for me, and really how I'm helping companies today, is that it's all based on an individual basis. So what I mean by that is, yes, group training can be effective, but every single seller is different. So you should be customizing your coaching to the person based on their strengths, what gaps they have, and adding value to them as an individual. And that's really what effective coaching is.
Yeah, I love that you talked about managing people by the numbers, and people are often assume that end outcome, if that's being reached, that means success. The thing that I'm always wondering is, okay, what about the opportunities we missed? Like you might be hitting your goal or hitting my expectations as a manager, but could you be doing more if we tackled this one little thing? Like anything in the process, like how you start building rapport, how you ask questions to people, how you set those expectations, how you state them back, your systems of organization. Like you can tackle and get like another 10% out of every single person if you're looking at how can we improve. It's not about beating people up and saying there's always something, wrong with you. It's about there's always something to improve. So as you think about coaching and being a sales manager, like what does that rhythm look like? Like how often should a sales leader meet with their team as a group, meet with them individually? Are those happening in the office? Are those happening in the field? What's an ideal scenario there?
Yeah. So for me personally, I hated meeting my team in the office. It felt like just so stale and confining and not really like having good progression or feedback. It's also like uncomfortable for sellers. I feel like good sellers in the landscape industry, like we're in our natural habitat, like in the field, right? Yeah. So that was my favorite part of being a sales leader. I don't know if it was my team's favorite part of me being in the car with them, riding around, going to meetings, but as a sales leader, you need to be in the field, in the trenches with your team. Now, I know this is it's gonna vary based on the company, how big, your team is, but like, let's say you have a team of 8. If you're in a region where you can drive to all of your markets, you should be seeing every rep at least twice a month. And again, that's in the field. Like, you're still going to have, maybe a bi-weekly one-on-one or a monthly, team call, because it is easier to do virtually. But the time in the field also has to be intentional. So what I mean by that is that if you're riding along with John, set an out of office reply so that your email is set up that if someone reaches out to you, they know that you're in the field and you're not going to respond to them right away. So you're giving your full attention and time, like even put your phone on do not disturb, to that seller. Number one, you're going to build such a stronger relationship. Like, you're going to learn so much more about them as a person, about their family, maybe what's really going on in their life or how they're feeling about work, because you're actually present in that front seat and not on your phone responding to emails while John is driving. So that's really, really important that I think a lot of sales leaders miss, is that they're like, oh, well, I'm spending time in the field, but they're not making that intentional, purpose of actually being present with the seller that they're with.
Yeah, I think if you're a good coach, you might be great at talking and asking questions on the fly and responding to things that your salesperson is bringing to you. But there is intentionality too. It's having some form of outline or agenda that you direct the conversation. So what are some of the ways, like what are some of those most valuable conversations that you can have with a salesperson to make sure, like, if they're new, they're getting what they need, that they're succeeding, that they're growing, or even for an established salesperson, like what are the questions that you should be asking?
I'll never forget when I first became a sales leader, a friend of mine who's, a mentor that I actually worked with at a legacy company, she taught me the number one thing when you become a sales leader or any kind of leader is truly getting to know your people. So what she did and what I now do is, we all have smartphones, right? So in that contact for each one of my sellers in the notes section, I had all of the personal notes about them, right? How many kids did they have? What were their kids' names, ages? What sports did their kids play? What was their favorite restaurant that, him and his wife liked to go to? When they had an anniversary, when was the birthday? When was the kid's birthday? What was their favorite cookie, ice cream? Like, literally everything that was so personal. And it seems, a lot of people may be hearing this and be like, oh, well, I don't have time for that. Like, you have to make time, because when you have that relationship and that level of just trust with your people, it makes the coaching totally different, because your seller is going to be so much more open with you. They're not just going to see you as, hey, Kayla's my boss. It's going to be like, Kayla has my back and she cares about me. And they will go to the end of the earth for you as a sales leader when you have that relationship. So like, you really got to figure out the why for them. But then in terms of like the coaching piece is that, people are going to have challenges, and we can't assume that it's the person. We have to find out, is it the skill, will, or the process, even inside of our company? And like your coaching conversations, they have to be around that. And again, we talked about this, is that you can't sit in an office and just do one-on-one pipeline calls with your team. Like, you're not being a leader if you're doing that. Like, you're being a desk jockey, as, Jeb Blunt likes to say. Like, you can't manage a team from a dashboard and numbers only. Like, you got to have conversations where you're actually adding value to them and you're actually connecting with them as people.
Yeah, I love that. It's what we teach salespeople, that you have to establish rapport and relationship before you can compel somebody to take action on anything. And I think that turns a coaching scenario away from feeling like micromanaging, because you're invested in more than just the problems and solutions. Like, I'm quick to I can identify things that need to be fixed and I go right on that. And then I miss opportunities to connect with people. And you're so right. Like, connecting deeply and making people feel like you care about them as a whole person versus just their work experience is the way to get results. I love that. Let's talk a little bit about expectations. A landscape company owner hires a new salesperson. Do you feel like universally owners have impatient or have unrealistic expectations of new salespeople, or is it the other way around?
It's so funny that you're asking me this question. So literally yesterday, I was on a call with an owner that was frustrated with a new seller. And I asked, how long has the seller been there? He said 5 weeks. And I said, well, tell me about your onboarding process. Like, have the expectations been set? And like, there was no onboarding process. This owner made the assumption, well, this guy I hired, he came from the industry. Like, it's been 5 weeks. Why am I not seeing the results that I want? So I think as leaders, like, we assume, just because like we know everything, that like our team or the people that we hire are going to pick up on that, or they're not going to make mistakes and it's just going to be a plug and play. So like, again, it goes back to the onboarding piece, but also like setting the expectations is that like, you can't expect a new seller to come in and just produce crazy results right away. Like, unless they're a unicorn, but there's very few of those in the industry.
Yeah. Well, so like whether it's the first 30, 60, 90 days, what kind of realistic expectations should owners be setting? And are there any specific things that you can measure with this in that 30, 60, 90 day window?
In the first 30 days, what you should expect from your seller, or if you're a seller listening to this, right, is like you need to be eyes and ears like wide open. Just be super curious, learn about the business, not just the what, but like, again, the how. And as a leader, this is going to show you how curious they are are they asking questions? Are they engaged? Are they coming to the branch for dispatch to understand how the crews operate, even though they're in sales, So like that I get it attitude in that first 30 days is really important. Like that initial behavior is going to tell you a lot. And then once you get to the first 60 days, I would say like post 30, as you start like day 31, like a good seller is going to be chomping at the bit to like be cut free, meaning they want to be out there networking, making cold calls, going to networking events. Like that is going to tell you a lot about how like eager they are, or are they like still holding out their hand, like trying to have, you continue to guide them. Like as a leader, you have to kind of let that rope out a little bit. Because it's going to tell you a lot. And then really 90 days, like that seller should be very independent. Like that pipeline should be built from everything that they have started to do from, 31 to 90. And again, the behavior is going to tell you a lot. And what I mean by that is, are they, I can do this, or I can't do this because I don't have the tools. The business market is horrible. Our pricing is bad. Like that mentality will tell you a lot as an owner in terms of how they are approaching the market and approaching the team too.
Yeah. Good measurements. Let's talk about where we find salespeople. I know you and I have had conversations about this in the past, and I've been like back and forth on this. And when I think back to, the 7 years I spent in sales and then another 5 in marketing, supplying leads for that sales team, I saw a lot of different variations of where salespeople came from. I think the one that's really common is you hire somebody that has a different position that's within your company or at another company. That was my path. I was in production first. I was a lawn care technician and a tree care technician. But I can tell you, looking back, like I am a salesperson. I love selling. I love having conversations. I think differently than a typical production person. So that's always what I wanted to do, is a matter of finding a place I actually felt comfortable selling for, that I believed in the company and what they did. I saw people that were crew leaders, people that were, in the horticulture department where they're doing like annual plantings, that sort of thing. I saw people come from outside the industry. They've come from a variety of different places. And I think the common thing is, this person, they're aging out, like they're tired of doing this hard work in the field. Now they're in their like late 30s. Let's move them into sales because they can't do this forever. They can't climb trees forever, whatever it is. But you and I have talked, and you talked about like, it's more important to find a hungry salesperson than it is to find somebody that knows the green industry. And I see that trend happening more now in the landscape and the lawn care industry. So How has your thinking changed on this? I mean, did you used to kind of be the other way? Do you feel like the tide shift? Do you feel like there's important things now that are coming to light that people are realizing that they didn't in the past?
Yeah. So number one, people need to stop making sales like the dumping ground for poor operators. Like I always got like the branch manager that like wasn't working out and they're like, we're going to make him a BD. And I'm like, I didn't have a say in this. So like y'all need to stop doing that because that's really frustrating as a sales leader. But to answer your question, yes, my thinking has definitely changed. When I first became a sales leader, I wanted the person that had industry experience. And I say that because it was the easy button, right? Like I didn't know as a new leader how to take somebody that maybe did door-to-door sales and make them a true landscaper because my background was that I came through the industry. So like that's what I was most comfortable with. But as my leadership career progressed and I saw the challenges with hiring people that had industry experience, like my outlook completely changed. You know, I now look for very specific things regarding character traits and not actual, like, has this person sold the landscape industry? Do they, you know, have they been a tech? Have they been an account manager? So like the things that I look for is like, how curious are they? Are they resilient? Are they coachable? Because those things make such a difference. Like I can teach somebody the industry and what to look for. Like I can't teach how to change your attitude or how to change your ego, which most tenured sellers have.
Yeah, I think it's easy when we look back on a career of 20 some years in the industry, especially if we came from a technical background, and especially if you see someone else doing something that maybe you do too. You know, like it's almost a detriment sometimes the more technical knowledge that you have when you're in sales, because I think people approach this from a position of insecurity sometimes, where they feel like if I give them more information, they will think I'm smarter, and then they will want what I'm telling them they need, instead of showing empathy for the customer's problem, building rapport, asking questions, finding out why they want to buy this, because sometimes we're completely wrong.
Yeah.
And I think that skill, it's developed with time. And if you're a technical expert, no offense, like you just may not be wired to do those things well. Like you may not, that might not come easy to you. Do you feel like I would say, I think it's easier to teach the content of what you sell or the services you provide than it is to teach these sales skills? Like how much of it is natural, ingrained, born, personality driven traits that you can't teach for sales, and how much of it can you teach?
The majority, I would say 80% of what makes a successful seller, you can teach. It's the 20% that makes good sellers great. And what I mean by that is that to go from good to great, you have to constantly be willing to learn not only what your leader is teaching you, but also you have to be self-motivated. So like, Are you listening to a podcast when you're driving from meeting to meeting that your boss didn't tell you to listen to, right? And like, what's that level of like curiosity and like listening and empathy and like emotional IQ? Like there's so many things that to me are in that 20% bucket that just so many people don't possess. That makes the biggest difference. And again, to me, the success comes down to the try piece. Like I just talked to one seller who gave me a boatload of excuses of why he couldn't hit his sales goal. And like, I can't do this. I can't do this. And like, again, that's I can't help you change that attitude. Like you either have to change that on your own, or like you're not in the right seat. And thinking about the people you're putting in a sales seat is super important. I think that's something that a lot of companies, overlook and they're not doing. Like tons of companies or tons don't, is like behavioral indexes, like whether it's culture index, DISC, like all of those things, like you should be doing and you should be investing in, not only for your existing team, but also for new hires, because you can really identify those behavior traits, which to me are that 20% that are so important and often overlooked, especially in our world.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. All right. As we close the conversation, I'm going to give you some rapid fire questions. I just want you to say the first thing that comes to your head, whether that's good or bad. When you think about sales in the green industry, what's a hill that you would die on?
That you can't hire your way out of a people development problem. Like the best sales company, the best landscape companies in the industry, they're recruiting top talent, but they're not intentionally developing it. And that's just a blind gap that they all have.
What's one business trend that you think is overrated?
So I wouldn't say this is overrated. I would say this is done without clear intention. And every single company I've worked for does this, is the freaking in-person meetings and kickoff meetings and leadership summits and all of these things. It's all fun. We all get together, but there's no clear action plan and nothing ever gets done.
So like it's a rah-rah meeting, get everyone jazzed and excited, but we're not really teaching them anything or helping them grow or talking about some specific problems. That's good.
Yep.
What is one question that every salesperson should ask themselves more often?
Do you know how your team actually feels today, this week, or just in general? Again, we have to stop assuming how our people feel, especially if your organization is going through change.
Okay, so that's a sales manager. What about the salespeople themselves? Is there a question they should be asking themselves to go from good to great?
I would say, how am I going to continue to learn this week? You got to challenge yourself to grow, because it's not just your leader's job to make you better. It's also your own job to make yourself better.
It's awesome. What's one sales leadership habit you wish more people practiced on a regular basis?
Awareness that your team is always watching you, and they are going to observe you more than they will ever listen to you. Great
tips. So Kayla, let's break down a little bit more about the company that you started recently. It's called Grit. Talk about what are the main buckets of things that you provide for green industry companies?
And so really 3 main buckets. The first one is placement. And I'm not your traditional recruiter or headhunter. I don't like those words. So I can help companies find sales talent, but I don't just place them in your organization and hope that they work out for 90 days. I actually partner with you along your onboarding process. I do industry-specific sales training for the first 2 weeks of their employment. And then they also get 90 days of coaching with me. As we talked about today, those first 90 days are really important. So not only will I find the talent, but I'll ensure that they're set up for success. The second bucket is sales coaching and training. So if you have existing sellers or sales leaders, and quite frankly, you just need help or you don't know what to do, I can talk to organizations and figure out exactly how I can help the people on your team or the sales leaders on your team. And then lastly is fractional sales leadership. So if you're an organization and you're ready to grow, but you don't know what that looks like or how to build that team, I can help with that as well.
Awesome. I am so excited for you and your new adventure with Grit, and I'll be paying close attention to what you're doing and the clients you're working with. So thanks so much for spending some time with us today. Hope everybody got a little something out of this that they can use to help their new salespeople succeed and ultimately to help their company thrive. Thanks so much, Kayla.
You're welcome.
Every green industry company wants great salespeople, but great salespeople, they're not built through a week of ride-alongs and learning how to use software. They're developed through intentional onboarding, consistent coaching, clear expectations, and leaders who invest in their growth. So if your last sales hire didn't work out, maybe the first question isn't, did we hire the wrong person? Maybe it's, did we give them everything they need to succeed? If you enjoyed this episode, please do me a favor and share it with some green industry peers. And be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and give our show a great rating there. Thanks so much for joining us. Here's to becoming a leader in your marketplace.